Hey, before we get started, let's switch gears from what we normally talk about. We need to talk about something that's probably more exposed than your questionable browser history. That's your online data. You got to keep it secure. You never know who's watching you. I get real stressed out when these ads start knowing exactly what it is that I've been looking at. That's where Surfshark VPN comes in. It's your go-to solution for secure internet access. I mean, if you're accessing Wi-Fi and you're using the public Wi-Fi servers, the geo-blocking on certain content that you can't get to, Surfshark is your answer to all of it. Plus, you can get it on unlimited devices. There's over 4,500 servers in 100 different countries. No logs VPN, 24/7 customer support. I couldn't recommend it more. Secure your privacy with Surfshark. It's completely risk-free with their 30-day money-back guarantee. Right now, go to surfshark.deals/notsam and use my code NOTSAM to get an exclusive deal plus 4 extra months at checkout. That link and code are in the show notes and episode description below. Today on Notsam Wrestling, John Cena is retired from sports entertainment and from professional wrestling, and we have a lot to talk about. This is Not Sam Wrestling. Welcome to Not Sam Wrestling and the first episode of Not Sam Wrestling post John Cena's retirement. I am freshly back from Washington, D.C., where I got to bear witness to John Cena's final match. I have seen so many John Cena matches live. I was there for WrestleMania 24, WrestleMania 20, the Royal Rumble that he returned at, WrestleMania 29 with The Rock, 29, 30, 31, 32, and so on. I don't even remember what the first John Cena match that I saw live would have been. You know, I know WrestleMania 20 could have been it, unless I went to some like live event in Syracuse, which is very possible. WrestleMania 20 at Madison Square Garden might have been the first John Cena match that I saw live. It was certainly the first big John Cena match that I saw live. I was there for what I think is really the crowning moment of the beginning of the babyface run. Of course, he walked into WrestleMania 20 as a babyface, but you know, FUing the Big Show to open that show is his first WrestleMania that he actually got to wrestle at. His first championship in the WWE when he won that United States title. I mean, it really was no looking back after that. And the idea that I was there and all these years later, I am in Washington, D.C., watching his final match. And I am so grateful for the opportunity to get to do that. It is unfathomable that I was a part of the countdown show to that event, that I was a part of the podcast, WWE's recap podcast that aired after that event, that I got to talk to R-Truth after watching that match on the podcast and have Obafemi on at possibly the launch of his career, his potentially WrestleMania 20 moment when his story is told. I can't tell you how heavy the emotions were in the building. First of all, Washington, D.C. showed up strong. Close to 20,000 people were in that arena. It was packed, and every single one of them was making noise all night long, but especially during that main event. To watch, with all the John Cena matches that I've watched, all of them were flooding back to me. All of those memories were flooding back upon me as I watched his last match. Just thinking of yaboos. When I started talking about yaboos, it wasn't the, punch, yeah, boo. To me, yaboos were inauthentic boos. When people would boo John Cena, I went back to that Royal Rumble where he came back early from his torn pec. And even though New York was conditioned to boo John Cena already at that point, it was such a surprise, and he was already such a star that it went, yeah, boo. It's like they remembered to boo him, but he already commanded that kind of attention. I mean, living through and being a wrestling fan during that era of Super Cena, where that was a criticism of John Cena. Super Cena was something that fans dreaded. Super Cena was a reason that fans at the time claimed that they didn't have interest in the product. LOL Cena wins was related to Super Cena. And yet here we are at the end, and it's all we want. We're chanting for Super Cena. He would say never give up, and so many would boo him because they said it was cheesy. And here we are chanting, don't give up, don't give up, don't give up. I think I said this on the Emergency podcast. But to me, you know, a conversation that you have about every babyface are the mountains that he had to overcome. For Cody Rhodes, it's The Rock going to WrestleMania, and it's Roman Reigns. As of now, those are the big kind of monsters. But even in the current space that we're in, Drew McIntyre is positioned as the monster that he has to overcome. You know, I mean, the same thing with John Cena, Hulk Hogan, whether it was Andre the Giant, whether it was King Kong Bundy, whether it was the Earthquake, whether it was any of them. How is he going to overcome this monster? John Cena had his share of monsters, and I've said this a couple of times this weekend, but the audience was always the biggest monster that he had to overcome. That as a babyface, he had to somehow convince the audience to stop booing for him. And while he ended his last match suffering a loss, what he really did was he finally won the battle with the audience, where the entire audience, I mean, were losing their minds for him from the time he came out throughout the whole match. The 5 moves of doom were not a group of moves that people were like, boy, I'm buying a ticket. I can't wait to see the 5 moves of doom. Some children were, but most sort of seasoned wrestling fans, the 5 moves of doom was something that was not a compliment. The 5 moves of doom was something that you mocked. Who does this guy think he is? He does the 5 moves of doom. He does 5 moves. Big deal. Now, it's all we want to see. We want to see it twice. We want to see it 3 times. Give him the 5 moves of doom again, just as long as you win the match, John. Is how so many people in that audience in Washington, D.C. felt. And then he didn't win the match. John Cena tapped out to Gunther at the end of that match. And Michael Cole dropped the call. Tonight, professional wrestling destroyed sports entertainment. Now, a lot of people are looking at that quote and I think digging deeper into it than I am, like asserting that it means, you know, like this is the new era. Sports entertainment is the old era. Sports entertainment is Vince. Pro wrestling is Triple H. But I don't buy that because of the psychology around what it is associated with. Pro wrestling was represented by a heel, and sports entertainment was represented by the ultimate babyface. So if you were trying to, you know, as the booker, quote unquote, if you were trying to go like, well, yep, now pro wrestling wins because Gunther won. It's like, but people are going to boo. So if you're really trying to go like, good news, everybody, there's a new era, I don't think that you would associate it with boos. I think you would turn sports entertainment into the enemy so that pro wrestling could conquer it. I think there's still plenty of look, I don't think there's that much of a difference between pro wrestling and sports entertainment. I thought it was a great tagline for the match. It was a great way to separate Gunther and John Cena. It was a great call to make based on the story of this match. But I don't think it goes beyond the story of this match. The product that they're promoting is the product that they're promoting is the product that they've been promoting. But I watched John Cena tap. And, you know, there are a lot of people that have pointed out the fact that he gave that smile when he tapped. You know what I mean? That struggle stopped and he gave that smile. And I've watched it now multiple times because I was like, yeah, that's a good point. I don't know how I feel about that, you know? Do I really want do I want the illusion to be disrupted and to see that smile? Like, isn't that the man, not the character? And man, I looked at it, and for me, the whole match was brilliant, I thought. It was not a happy one. It didn't make me feel good, but it was just a brilliant beautiful, poetic, tragic story. It was a beautifully done tragedy. It was incredible, straight up storytelling in the wrestling ring where you made a decision, and the fact that you didn't make a half measure, the fact that you went all the way and said, no, it's going to hurt. We're not going to halfway do it. We're not going to kind of do it. We're not going to do it, but then afterwards make it so it's okay. We're doing it. And the way it was done, it was like, God, did it hurt, but man, did it make sense? Man, was it not justified, but earned? I thought that the outcome and the story was earned based on the story that was told going into this match. And I thought, it really struck me when John Cena stood up at the end of the match and he said, I gave you all I had. And I said something to that effect to the audience. And I think he was talking about the match. I think he was talking about this year. I think he was talking about his entire career. I think the story of John Cena tapping out is that when you go 25 years, almost 23 years, never giving up, 20 years without tapping out. So if you go 20 years with the tagline, never give up, and you don't, that character is going to be exhausted. To never give up in 20 years, when it's 20 years that is full of every challenge imaginable, but you just keep fighting, just keep fighting, just keep fighting. I think that John Cena, the character, got to a place where he was in that sleeper hold, where he had tried every counter, he had tried every finish, he had put him through a table, he had done everything in his arsenal. And then it almost felt like there was this wave of peace that flushed over him. That character came to the realization that he had given everything and that there was nothing left. Sometimes in MMA, when you tap out, it's not really because you can't take the pain anymore. It's because you don't want your arm to break. Oh, better tap. Otherwise, it's going to break my arm. You have to make that split decision, right? I got to tap right now because otherwise my arm's going to break, and I don't want to have a broken arm. So I'm logically saying I'm not getting out of this. Like there's no sort of it's not about heart anymore. It's, I know what this is. He's got that locked in. And if he twists it one more time, my arm's going to break. I better tap because otherwise it's going to take me months to get this arm fixed. Tap, tap, tap. Match is over. Doesn't mean he quit. It means he didn't want to have a broken arm because he wants to fight again. Now, John Cena's not going to fight again. However, that realization of, I don't have anything left. I gave them everything. I have nothing left to give. And instead of that being something horrible, instead of that being something that John Cena, the character, could not admit, John Cena, the character, knew that to be true. And it almost gave him peace to know he had truly given it everything. And so he tapped out with a smile, knowing that there's no tomorrow. And he gave it his all. And he gave it everything that he had. And now it's time to go off into the sunset. To me, that's how I took that smile. And maybe I'm looking at this whole thing more poetically than a lot of people are. And I think that I certainly am doing that more than some people are, because some people hated the finish altogether. And I'm sure there will be some people going, well, of course Sam liked it. He's going to like whatever finish he's given. Number one, I didn't like the WrestleMania finish. And number two, if you listen to me, if you listen to the radio show, I literally said this was how it was going to happen. I literally said, if you look at the story that's being told going into Saturday night's main event, this is how it's going to happen. I said on the radio show. AA, kick out, sleeper hold, tap out. And that's it. Based on the story that was being told. There's not one way to do this. But to me, there was only one way to do this within the realm of the story that you are telling. As soon as Gunther said, I am going to make you give up. As soon as it was pointed out to the audience that John Cena, that's the one thing he's never done. That's the one thing he would never do, is give up. As soon as that is pointed out, then either John Cena has to win, which I never thought was very likely, or Gunther has to make John Cena give up. If we have said John Cena has never given up, and Gunther says, I'm going to make you give up, and then Gunther pins John Cena, that's called a half measure. That's called, trying to well, we're going to put over Gunther, but we're still going to save this for John Cena. That's trying to have your cake and eat it too. You haven't done anything if you do that, and you've wasted this opportunity. That is that word that gets thrown around. People love saying fumble. That would be a fumble. If you go, well, even though Gunther said he's going to make John Cena give up, he's not going to make him give up. He's going to pin him. And so John Cena's still going to lose, but at least he won't give up. But then Gunther won't have that thing. Gunther won't be this guy that ruined it. Gunther ruining it is the character. Gunther ruining it is essential to this story. The fact that nobody wanted that to happen is essential to who Gunther is and who he always has been. Gunther and by the way, the name Gunther works. Now can we all admit that? Not everybody, many were very skeptical when Walter was changed to Gunther. What do you mean they're changed? His name's Walter. Gunther works. But, Gunther has lost most of, if not all, of the big matches that he's had. Gunther lost to Jey Uso at WrestleMania. Before that, he lost to Sami Zayn at WrestleMania. He lost to CM Punk at SummerSlam. He loses these big matches. Now it's got to be over. That's no more. He's now the guy that retired John Cena. And there were some people that were saying, well, he didn't retire John Cena. John Cena was going to retire anyway. He killed him. He killed him. That's why John Cena had to tap. That's why John Cena had to give up. Because the character had to die. That's the whole point of the retirement tour. That's how you know it's over. It ends. You can't still have this sort of yeah, but John Cena's still here. No, he's not. He's dead. The character is dead. Gunther killed him. And that is the accomplishment in what Gunther has done. And John Cena in 2025 is literally the ultimate good guy. He's the guy that everybody is rooting for. So the idea that Gunther killed him, it should upset people. And people should be upset about it. And I loved, to tell you the truth, that people were booing it. And I loved that people stayed booing Gunther. And I loved that people are emotional about it. Because the fact is that whether there are a lot of people framing it as, no, I'm booing the company. I'm doing this. People are getting upset that the bad guy beat the good guy. And that the bad guy beat the good guy in the way the bad guy beat the good guy. And that's wrestling, man. That's what we want. I want to feel that way, If John Cena is going to give up, I don't want to feel good after it. And I didn't feel good after it. And I shouldn't feel good after it. We shouldn't be trying to get above our emotions and logic our way through professional wrestling. Professional wrestling is an escape. Professional wrestling is a world that we drift off into where it just makes us feel we don't have to think about the writer's room. We don't have to think about any of this stuff. I think for what John Cena did, there were two ways to go about it. Was John Cena's final match about the night, or was it bigger than that? And those are the two ways you can tackle it. And to say bigger than that is not to say more important. It's just a matter of, are we thinking about tonight or are we thinking about tomorrow? Those are two separate roads to go down. If we're thinking about tonight, John Cena wins. Let's get some confetti coming down. Let's have a parade. Let's all beat up the bad guy. we're all going to feel great leaving Washington, D.C. If we're thinking about tomorrow, John's not going to be here, and he's never going to be here again. So if we're thinking about tomorrow, why not start tomorrow with a villain on the tippity top of the card that has ruined things for us? When John Cena was a heel, what made him a heel for a very brief period of time was that he said he was going to ruin wrestling. Well, Gunther ruined sports entertainment. Gunther ruined our night. Gunther ruined some of our childhoods. Gunther took all those emotions that we had going into this thing and he stomped on them. And it doesn't feel good when that happens, you know? I think the fact that tomorrow is what's being thought about is the same thing, by the way. And like, you know, there's some that think that, well, Vince never would have done this. Vince is the guy who, you know, guess what? When it was time for Ric Flair to go, Shawn beat him. When it was time for Kurt Angle to go, Baron Corbin beat him. When he decided it was time, Brock Lesnar beat the streak. This is stuff that's happened many, many times before. Now, recently, we have the example of Sting in AEW. I think Sting is a moment where they decided to think about tonight instead of thinking about tomorrow. And by the way, that worked out well as well. Everybody had a great time. It's just two different roads to go down. And for me, I think the long-term benefits of thinking about tomorrow will make this make so much sense. And I think if you've listened to John Cena talk, and I don't love that people are going like, well, you know, this is how John Cena would have wanted it. I don't think, based on the perspective that we have or the chairs that we sit in, it is fair for us to ascribe any sort of responsibility to any individual. We have no idea what the creative process has been throughout this tour, let alone on this match. We don't know whose idea it was. We don't know anything. All we can do is comment on the story itself. And if you like it, that's a conversation. And if you don't like it, that's a conversation. But once you start getting into these granular details that none of us could possibly know, I think the conversation instantly loses credibility. I also think that you will see over-exaggerations, probably on both sides, but on the internet, more in the negative space, where people are going to turn this into something, you know, much more negative than it was, or negative in a different way, because it was negative, but negative in the sense that the bad guy won. And now you're going to take that energy and move forward with it. Because if you go down John Cena's tour, he did pass the torch to a good guy. That was Cody Rhodes. He did put a young guy over. That was Dominic Mysterio. And now we go forward and we can have these conversations about Gunther in these massive, massive matches. The guy who retired John Cena. You know, John Cena said that he thinks Brock Lesnar is on the chopping block, that Brock Lesnar may be retiring soon. Is that something where Gunther is going to get that match? Is that something where maybe Braun Breaker gets that match, and then you have a match between Gunther and Braun Breaker? You know, part of this is creating what the WWE is going to be like 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And you look at guys like Braun Breaker, and you look at guys like Obafemi, and you look at these guys, well, guess what? Gunther is your next generation supervillain. And I think that's always been the intention. And I think that is a tough pill to swallow when we've all been assembled to celebrate John Cena. But realistically, in every conversation he's ever had, he's talked about passing energy forward in wrestling. That's how he views his responsibility, is to leave this place better than how he found it. And that he is not here now to be remembered later. He's here now so that now is successful and can lead to more success later. Not so he can create something that we all talk about, you know, a year from now. You know, the idea that a year from now we would talk about how great the John Cena party was at Saturday night's main event is antithetical to the things that John Cena has been saying on this retirement tour. I think the idea that the sort of really interesting thing about this retirement tour is the journey that we all went on. And I think that there's no way you can tell me that it went in the direction that anybody thought it was going to go in. Some believe that it was not a good run. Some believe that it was. Some believe it had its ups and downs. Like, there's all kinds of opinions about it all over the place. To me, I think it's kind of remarkable because what happened was you end up with something that people aren't even sure what it is, but it seems like it could be fun, right? Like, already this year alone, people thought WrestleMania was going to be his last match. They didn't quite grasp the full year. A lot of people. Then you get this completely unexpected heel turn, and you have this moment that will be forever. Then you have this heel run that doesn't remotely live up to expectations. And you've got this other sort of thing where it's like, not only am I booing John Cena, but I'm booing this whole thing because this isn't even the fun bad guy stuff. This isn't what I wanted in this retirement tour. And then come July, August, good guy John Cena comes back. And the fact that not only is John Cena back, but for the first half of his retirement tour, we thought we had lost him. We were like, oh no, this whole thing is like up in the air. We just want to see our John Cena again. We just want to see good guy C-Nation John Cena again. And then boom, John Cena comes back for that Cody match at SummerSlam, and then it's off to the races. We already had enough nostalgia and excitement for John Cena when he came back in January. But the idea that that was almost taken away from us made this second half of the year, I think, even bigger than it would have been otherwise. And it led us to this point where at Saturday night's main event, there wasn't a solitary person that in their heart, emotionally speaking, wanted John Cena to lose that match. And even less so, wanted John Cena to give up in that match. But that's what Gunther is. That's the character that you're building with Gunther. That was I don't think that was a surprise to anybody that the reaction was so negative. I think that there were some that expected a speech from John Cena and didn't get it. I kind of wonder if that was John himself deciding he didn't want to do a speech. It really seemed like once the match was over, John Cena wanted to leave the ring, and that's it. That he wanted that match to be the end of John Cena. And that's why I go back to saying that tap out is so important, because I believe that that's John Cena allowing that character to peacefully go into the night. I think that's what we saw. He had this sense of peace, like, I'm finished. I spent 20 years never giving up. I'm finally finished. My service has completed. And he tapped, and it was over. And that's the end. And if John Cena is coming to us in the beginning of the year and saying, I'm going to give you one more year, and then it's going to be the end, then there's nothing more poetic, tragic, but poetic than the idea of us finally realizing how much we love John Cena, only to actually get to the end. And here we are. And there was such an emotional reaction to it all that Triple H comes out. And I didn't expect this. I thought this was fascinating. This was so fascinating to me that Triple H comes out and gets booed. The Booker, as we perceive him as fans, gets booed because John Cena's not going to get booed. We boo the bad guy in Gunther, but we're so upset that the bad guy won that the fans are booing the Booker. The fans are viewing the guy who is presented to them as the person who writes the stories. And I'm looking around, and I was just taking it in while all that was happening, Because I don't know that I've ever seen that before. I mean, we've seen like in the Mr. McMahon era, like when an authority figure is presented on television as a heel authority figure, then of course we've seen him get booed. But when it's just the actual person who's in charge, that wasn't Triple H coming out as the evil authority figure. That was Paul Levesque coming out to congratulate John Cena. And Paul Levesque got booed. And I think that what that is it's almost like this post-Unreal version of storytelling. And I don't even mean storytelling like that. Like, because there's no way it was intentional. Nobody saw it coming. And I can't imagine that anybody was thrilled about it. But I do think that because of this is something that happens when you have shows like Unreal, when you embrace this idea of everybody kind of knowing what's going on. When you go, okay, the internet is aware of how the business works. There's a lot of wrestling fans, myself included, that are fascinated by the inner workings of the business and just want to see more and more and more. And you go, okay, here's how we do it. Here's the show Unreal. Here's this documentary about this person. Here's this person kind of doing a shoot interview. Here's this, post-show press conference where we're going out of character. We're now taking wrestling to a different place than it's ever been, except because professional wrestling is not MMA, is not baseball. Professional wrestling is not a sport. It's not the NBA. It's not the NFL. You can't just go out there and answer questions as a shoot because that becomes part of the story. That becomes part of the work. Once you introduce it, it's almost canonized. There is no separation. Once you introduce material to the audience, pro wrestling is everything and everywhere. And as a pro wrestling fan, we take all of the pro wrestling content in, and it informs how we view the show. There is no separation for wrestling fans like me. If I see you doing an out-of-character interview, that is going to inform how I react to you when you're in character. If there are millions of examples, hyperbolically speaking, of wrestlers doing out-of-character interviews, coming across as engaging or relatable, or just there's something, I like that girl, I like that guy, and now you're cheering for their wrestling character. It's all, once it is in public, it becomes canon, it becomes story, it becomes part of that stew that is professional wrestling. Professional wrestling never has been and never will be simply what happens inside the squared circle. If you are in a tag team on the television and you go out in an interview and go, yeah, we play these characters that are a team, that are a tag team, but I hate that guy in real life. I think he's very obnoxious. Then guess what? The only way the audience is going to be able to continue to watch you is if your tag team splits and now you guys wrestle. Because everything is the same thing. So when you go out there and you go, and this is, and we knew it before, but before, if the authority figure was going to be on television, they were in character. This is the first time in wrestling that you're taking the authority figure and having them just be themselves, but on television. But see, if they're on television, then they're existing in this world of characters, which then they're not separated from it. So we end up watching shows like Unreal, seeing the press conferences, seeing the post shows, seeing the interviews that air on the pre-show, seeing all this stuff, seeing the podcast, seeing the ESPN shows, the first takes of it, all of it. And All of it becomes what informs how you watch the show. Every interview that John Cena did, whether it was with Pat McAfee, whether it was with Bill Simmons, all of those, if you listen to them, if you watch them, it informed how you watch this match. You didn't separate the podcast interviews and go, none of that counts. Now I'm in wrestling land. There is no separation between real world and wrestling land. And therefore, when you embrace these ideas of here's who the players are, here's who's in charge, this is what the writer's room looks like, this is who's doing what and why things happen the way they do. Then, when things happen that you don't like on the show, which can be simple storyline things. I don't like that the bad guy won. I feel this way because the bad guy won. So, all part of how I take this in, I know who makes the matches. I know who chooses the winners. And I'm going to boo him as soon as I see him. And that is a fascinating result of the WWE opening up the curtain further than it's ever been opened up actively by the company before. And I'm not even saying it's a bad thing. I think it's just something worth observing and noticing, because to me, it's directly related. Directly related. When you go, there is something that happens as a wrestling fan when you see Jey Uso in the position that he's in, and you have also watched Triple H telling Jey Uso, I want to strap the rocket to you, but you have to show me that you can do it. It's a very interesting thing, because you know you can give credit to Jey Uso for getting to where he's at, because he has to do the real life work. He doesn't just get the rocket. He has to earn the rocket. So what we're cheering for is for him to earn the rocket, but we're now aware of the rocket, you see. And so when that rocket goes askew, we know who strapped it to him because we watched it on Netflix. And I think that that's kind of what you're seeing with Triple H. And then you have to ask the question, how do you respond to that? Do you lean in? Do you make that part of a story? It was really interesting. Triple H was on the post show saying we have a time-honored tradition in this business. And I was like, this is the Brett Screwed Brett promo. It's the same verbiage. And I thought that was I just thought it was fascinating. I thought the parallels were fascinating. And so, I just sit there and kind of marvel at this idea that the way wrestling stories are told have changed, and therefore the way wrestling stories are perceived has changed. And I think that it's going to get really interesting going forward, because part of doing stuff like this that is unprecedented, meaning showcasing how much is going on, because, by the way, I think it's a positive thing that so much of how wrestling works is put on display now. I think that that's a positive thing. I think that when you're not showing it, you have a lot of people who don't pay attention to wrestling that are thinking it's all more simple or dumber or whatever than it actually is, that it actually is this incredible group of extraordinarily talented people that are putting on this show that draws emotions out of thousands and thousands and thousands of people in real time, as well as millions that watch this on streaming and on television every single week and have done so for years and years and years. I think that it's a good thing that we show the world how much is really going into this. But I think you also have to sit there and consider, look, now we know. And maybe I don't even know how fully I considered this before I watched the reaction of the John Cena match. But now we know this could be, and maybe I'm wrong, but this could be a consequence of kind of showing everybody how it's made, because now we know who's in charge, right? And the same thing happened. That's how the Mr. McMahon character was formed. It was public who was in charge, and so when something happened that fans didn't like happened, that had to be accounted for. So you wonder where this is going to lead. Now, I don't think that's really necessary, because I believe Gunther is going to be able to carry the heat on this. I think that, people got hot in Washington, and I think that's going to happen. But I think ultimately, and also you don't want to take the heat away from Gunther on this. You want Gunther to have that heat, right? You want Gunther to be the villain in this scenario, because Gunther's the guy that's going to be wrestling on shows. Gunther's the guy that you're going to buy tickets to see. Gunther's the guy that's going to be in matches. And Gunther's the guy that eventually is going to get beat by someone. And then that person gets bigger if everything works the way it's supposed to work. And I don't know why it wouldn't. So I don't think in this scenario you allow this to be the story. I think the story is with Gunther and Gunther ruining the night. I think that's the story. But I do think it's really interesting that fans are moving in the direction that they are moving in. We'll get right back to it, but every December, I promise that I'm going to stay on top of my routine, and then suddenly I'm traveling. I'm at 3 different family dinners. My nutrition plan completely falls apart, but this year, shockingly, Huel is the reason I'm actually solving the problem. That's Huel, Huel. I've been using the Huel Ready to Drink all year, and I'm leaning on it hard right now, if I can be honest. Complete meal in a bottle. There's 35 grams of protein, 7 grams of fiber, 27 minerals and vitamins, literally ready to go. No prep, no mess, and keeps me full when the alternative is grabbing whatever holiday snack is closest. And I've been loving Huel's new canned Super Greens drink too. 42 vitamins and nutrients, 4 grams of fiber, 25 calories, no added sugar. In December, when my vegetable intake is like nothing, I'm solving that. It's sparkling, and it actually tastes really good with 3 different flavors: apple, peach, and blueberry. If you're trying to stay fueled during the busiest, snackiest time of year, Huel, they make it easy. And now they're available in Target. You can see it there. You can think of me. It's going to be great. You can get 15% actually off your first order at Huel.com with code NOTSAM. That's code NOTSAM. Minimum $75 purchase. Huge thanks to Huel for helping me stay sane and healthy this holiday season, and for supporting the podcast. It was a big night for more people than just Gunther and John Cena. Huge night for the NXT stars that were on the show. I think I would have loved to see AJ Styles and Dragon Lee versus Javon Evans and Leon Slater. I'd love to see them get more time. However, in the time that they had, they were unbelievable. What a fantastic match. And you look at that and you realize, like, Javon Evans and Leon Slater being in their early 20s, it's not just how athletic they are. It's the engagement that they have with the audience. And it's their ability that even with these like insane flippy moves, that they are in there kind of telling a story, that they do have this amazing, and maybe it's because they both started so young, but they have this, it feels like they have an amazing foundation under them. And you look at those guys and know that you have decades in both of them. And there was a time when people who wrestled like that, they would say that that's not the case, but that's been proven completely wrong. The Hardy Boys are still doing it. Rey Mysterio is still doing it on high levels. So, I mean, I think, and I think you could say that about everybody from NXT on that show. I think Sol Ruka getting the opportunity not only to get the W, but to show everybody the Soul Snatcher, get out there with Zarya, and show, like, look, we keep telling you how deep this women's roster is. This is what we've got. And by the way, this isn't even the world title scene in NXT. NXT Women's Championship scene is a whole different scene, but we've also got this Sol Ruka. Look at this. And don't get me started on Obafemi. Obafemi came across like such a star on Saturday night's main event. I mean, the only bummer I think people had was that it ended in a disqualification. Because, man, people were into him. And they were into him from the time he came out. Obafemi showing up on SmackDown and, like, people reacting to him there. And then, boom, here he comes on Saturday night's main event. And he is standing in the ring with the biggest WWE superstar there is, the WWE champion, Cody Rhodes. And number one, he's still got size. A lot of times in NXT, they come to the main roster, and the people who looked really big in NXT compared to main roster wrestlers don't always look as big, but Oba still has that size. Oba still has that intensity. Oba still has that sneaky athleticism. And even people who may have paid a ton of money for a ticket who didn't know who Obafemi was, who didn't watch him on SmackDown, who haven't watched NXT, it took them all of 2 seconds to figure this out. The aura that Obafemi walked in with. The match that he had with Cody Rhodes. Even with the DQ finish, the fact that you got Drew McIntyre involved and Oba knocked Drew McIntyre down. And Drew McIntyre just like stared up at him. I mean, it was nuts. For me, I would love to see like Oba. I mean, he's got to stay in NXT for a while, right? Because he's still the NXT champion. But the fact that I thought Oba was going to lose to Cody. I thought he's going to have a great match, lose to Cody, but that's okay. He would have been fine. Go back to NXT, beat everybody up, come to the main roster. But he didn't. They didn't even want him to lose to Cody Rhodes, I don't think. It didn't seem like that anyway. I mean, if it were me, I would, and I think I've said this before, I would keep him in NXT. We've gotten a taste. Have him defend that title for the first, portion, first third or whatever of the year next year. Have him go to Stand and Deliver. Have him appear to be in a position where I'll bet he's going to lose the title. But he wins. Have him retain the NXT championship at Stand and Deliver. Now you're like, now what? The Monday after WrestleMania, I wouldn't put him in the Rumble. I wouldn't put him on the main roster. Now that we've seen him, I wouldn't put him on the main roster until it's time. No reason to put him in the Rumble, in my opinion. He'd be great in the Rumble. If he shows up in the Rumble, I'm not going to be disappointed. But that's how I would do it. I would wait until the Monday after WrestleMania. I would have him debut on the Monday after WrestleMania. And then that Tuesday after WrestleMania, have him go to NXT and vacate the NXT championship. Oba's lost to like 2 people in NXT. Ricky Saints, Tony D. He got his victory back against Ricky Saints. Have him get his victory back against Tony D. He vacates the title. He's on the main roster. And then it's off to the races. I mean, the idea of Oba versus Drew, Oba versus Cody, getting into the young guys, Oba versus Braun Breaker. There's just so much that you could do. I cannot wait to see it. I am so interested in what you guys thought of Saturday night's main event, of John Cena, of everything that went down. Let's get into these emails. NotSamWrestling@gmail.com is our email address. That's NotSamWrestling@gmail.com. Let's get into one that just came in. This is from Clyde. Hope all is well. It is. It's incredible. With Gunther's submission victory over John Cena at Saturday night's main event from last week's show, can we wildly speculate a future match between Gunther and Brock Lesnar and Gunther doing the same exact thing to Brock and expanding on that equity or insanity/nuclear heat? Let's perhaps say at SummerSlam 26, right, next year, and Gunther, number 1, retiring Brock in his hometown, and number 2, if Brock is champion at that time. Thoughts? Thanks. Only 2 documented times Brock submitted, by the way. Lesnar submitted in 2003 in a singles match against Kurt Angle at SummerSlam. Also at 2003 Survivor Series in a 5-on-5 elimination match. Yeah, I think It all depends, right? I think that a lot of people are looking that way. I also, I would love to see WWE do stuff that we just don't see coming. I hope, that's what I hope. I hope in 2026, we get a lot of stuff that we just don't see coming. I think a lot of people see that coming. And that's not to say it wouldn't be good. It might still be good. I think you would have to turn Brock babyface between now and then if you want that type of reaction. And, I don't know, you somehow have to make it seem like maybe he's not going to retire. It can't be a given. First of all, you're never going to get the kind of heat that he got on John Cena. That's not going to happen. But will people in Minnesota, will there be one person that actually believes Brock Lesnar is going to win? If it's December of 25 and we're saying, hey, in 8 months, this should happen, and a lot of people are saying that, I think in order for it to be effective, you have to somehow get it to the point where people don't see it coming. So if you could take me down that road, that's a road I would like to go down. But, I'm more interested in just seeing what he's going to do this week. Is he going to be in the Royal Rumble? What's his WrestleMania? What is Gunther's WrestleMania going to look like? That's what I want to see. Honestly, I would love it if for WrestleMania, I think it'd be great. Because I think you got to keep Gunther away from the world title for a little while. Because once he gets it, he can't lose it. So I would kind of like to see, I'd like to see Ilya Dragunov between now and WrestleMania lose the United States Championship to someone. And maybe it's a member of the MFTs and everybody attacks him, or I don't know. But just someone that there's sort of some kind of doubt in there. And then I would love for Ilya Dragunov versus Gunther to be a WrestleMania match. Number one, because it could steal the show. And number two, because after this U.S. title run, you might convince people that Ilya is going to get a rub. And then he doesn't. Gunther beats Ilya. Sam from Salt Lake writes in, I'm listening to your emergency podcast and had a thought. I wanted to get you in the moment. I'm thinking John Cena won't go into the Hall of Fame until 2030. 5 years? The way I see it, his last match is that the hero of Super Cena is dead. Yes, John Cena is dead. It's Tony Stark at the end of Avengers. I think that's 100% right. Gunther is Thanos or whatever. No, I guess Tony Stark was able to beat Thanos, but whatever. But yes, Tony Stark, right. And I was Spider-Man. Crying next to him. I didn't even watch that series. I went to see that Avengers. I cried during that Iron Man scene. It was crazy. He gave his all, and he's done. That's why he didn't give a speech or anything post-match. Yeah, when he didn't give a speech, I really I felt like that's John. That's John deciding he didn't want to do it. That's John deciding he wants it to be over at this point. Just his gear in the ring, and that's it. So it would be fitting that the character of John Cena waits the requisite 5 years that traditional sports halls give and comes back to give his final speech then. I mean, 5 years for the WWE Hall of Fame doesn't seem, it doesn't mean anything. I guess that happens in other sports. But Rey Mysterio and Paul Heyman are active WWE superstars that are in the Hall of Fame. I don't think that that's necessary. I could understand why he wouldn't go into the Hall of Fame this year because it's a little close, but I could see him going into the Hall of Fame just as well. I mean, is it possible? Sure. But I think that 5 year thing, it means nothing to me. So Avik writes in, what was your favorite match from the farewell tour? I go Dom versus Cena in Boston. That's a great question. John Cena's farewell tour. I think my favorite match, and I said last night on the Countdown show, I said that or Saturday night, I said my favorite match was Dom versus Cena in San Diego, and Dom wins the Intercontinental Championship. Obviously, I was just being a troll for Dom. SummerSlam, I think. I think the Cody John match at SummerSlam was my favorite. Was my favorite match. I think so. Michael writes in, love the podcast. The ending of Cena versus Gunther was absolutely beautiful, and it's genuinely annoying that so many people don't understand how masterfully Cena told his last wrestling story. Mike, I don't know, man. I think it's unfair to assume that fans who are upset don't understand. I think that fans who are upset understand, but they're upset because they didn't want the good guy to lose. They didn't want John Cena to tap out. They understand why he did, but they didn't want him to. They wanted him to either win or to at least not give up. And I think that that's legitimate. It's not how I feel. I love the way the story was told. But I think that to not allow people to feel bad that the greatest good guy ever lost to this bad guy is missing the spirit of professional wrestling. If a good guy loses, and it's the ultimate good guy, and he loses definitively to a bad guy at the end, it should feel bad. If you walked into Saturday night's main event not ready to see your favorite wrestler, for all intents and purposes, get killed, then I can understand why you would feel bad. You know, I mean, when it's time to go, it doesn't make it any easier to let go. I mean, that's why, I mean, with this whole show, I'm talking about understanding the kind of story and the beauty and the poetry and all this, but also at the same time acknowledging that it doesn't feel good. But also it's not supposed to feel good. But also we should express if we're not feeling good. And I don't know. As much as I don't like the sort of toxic negativity of like the wrestling content space that's been happening a lot of times by people who don't even really watch wrestling, I also don't want to live in a space where it's like wrestling fans can't be mad that the bad guy won. We finally got wrestling to a place where fans are mad about the bad guy winning. I don't think that that's something that you want to look at as a negative for pro wrestling. I think people being this mad that John Cena lost is good for pro wrestling. You should be this mad that John Cena lost. He's a good guy. The best guy. Let's go to Josh. Josh says, I'm sure you've talked about all podcast. I may have already answered emails on Cena tapping out. At WrestleMania 40, fans were praising Triple H and were happy that he was the head of creative. Less than 3 years later, they're booing him and chanting expletives because Cena tapped out. We may never know who made that decision. This is great. These are points that I made. To me, it was a good ending. I would agree. It's a good ending in terms of story. Cena hit Gunther with everything he had, and Gunther kept coming back stronger. To me, Cena smiled and said, this is it. My time is up. Fans can be upset with the ending and complain. It's not what they wanted, but that's their own fault. Again, like you gotta ease up on not allowing fans to be upset that the good guy lost. I mean, nobody wants to see the hero die. Sometimes for the purpose of the story, the hero has to die, especially in pro wrestling, because the hero can't just go on forever. It's not a superhero movie where you can just use scripting and CGI or replace the actor altogether and the superhero lives forever. This is like if you had to maintain a superhero franchise and put out a movie every week forever and still maintain interest in it. You think the superhero is going to stay alive the entire time? No. Eventually that superhero dies. If you're making 3 movies, yeah, we can keep the superhero alive. If you're doing a movie every week for all time, eventually the superhero is going to die. And sometimes it'll feel good and sometimes it'll feel bad. Leading up to last night, I saw a post that The Rock was going to be there to confront Cena or that Jericho was going to reveal himself as the masked man. Instead, we got the ending to a legendary career, and that's it. Cena said it from day one of his retirement tour, that after the 13th, it's over and the business goes on without him. That's what happened. He gave us exactly that. Just because the dirt sheet rumors didn't come true doesn't make it a bad event. This morning, I see people posting that Cena wanted 200 appearances and Triple H told him you can only have 37. Social media has turned wrestling fans into the worst fans in sports. Daniel Bryan said it best during his heel run, wrestling fans are fickle. Well, John Cena did say in his Tom Rinaldi interview, it's not dirt sheets. John Cena said in the Tom Rinaldi interview that he pitched doing 200 dates, and that the WWE said to him, that's not even how we do things anymore. We do things differently now, and 36 is better. And I think John Cena was saying that to say, that was crazy when I thought about doing it. Like, they were right. That would have been a crazy thing. You're not entirely off on all of this stuff. And I get frustrated with bad faith criticism. I don't mind real criticism. I don't mind. I was looking around. I was not upset at all at the fans booing. I was like, yeah, like they're passionate. This is what John Cena is all about. But the bad faith takes are where I get annoyed. And I think that as fans, we have to try really hard to make sure we differentiate those two, because I don't think it's a right thing at all to not allow fans to be like, I didn't like that and I want to boo that. Alfredo writes in, Lord of the Marks, my lord, my liege. People hate that Gunther made Cena give up, but Cena was once a true babyface. We finally got a true heel. Right now, everybody hates Gunther. They don't realize how difficult it is to make one, and now it's been done. I would agree with that, Alfredo. I would agree with that entirely. I mean, I've marveled at Cody Rhodes before. When you have real baby faces and real heels, it's amazing. I mean, Gunther is like everybody that's ever said, what happened to real heels? Gunther. Everybody that's ever said, oh, kayfabe is dead. No, it's not. Gunther. Gunther is doing character work on the level of The Undertaker. And I will say that until I'm blue in the face, and some people won't like it, but it's true. Who is Gunther outside of the wrestling character? No clue. Nobody knows. That's the magic of Gunther. And now he's a massive heel. Matt writes in, happy holidays to the OG Podcast Tribal Chief. Appreciate that. I'm pretty upset about Saturday night's main event. Great. And I thought this little exercise might show why. Can you rank the top 5 or 10 matches of John Cena's last time is now tour? I'd be curious to see how far you get before you get to Gunther. I think people were hoping for the best, most memorable match of the run, and that's not what we got. I would completely disagree. I think that it's 100% the most memorable match of the run because of the finish. It's a different story. And all of John Cena's matches were different stories. What flavor of ice cream do you like? Because John Cena was Baskin Robbins on this tour. It was all 31 flavors. When John Cena was trying to ruin wrestling, he gave us a lousy WrestleMania main event. When John Cena was trying to give us what we wanted, he gave us an amazing SummerSlam main event against the same opponent both times. John Cena gave us a tribute match with AJ Styles. He gave us an old school good guy, bad guy match with Dominic Mysterio. He gave us the Brock Lesnar squash. And now he gives us this match, which I don't know how you could say this wasn't a good match when the entire time, the entire arena was lit up. They wanted the hits. They wanted the 5 moves of doom. They wanted the 5 knuckle shuffle. They wanted it Super Cena. That's what they wanted. And Gunther had to be that guy. Gunther was who John Cena was at WrestleMania, who was there to make sure that you did not get what you wanted. And Gunther laid in those clotheslines and laid in those power bombs and made you believe that he was that evil. I would completely disagree that the quality of the match itself is something to be upset about. Finish, the good guy gave up. I could 100% see somebody saying, I am sad that the good guy gave up. I don't like that the good guy gave up. That's fun. We can have a conversation. But the idea that the match itself was not good, I don't think that's true. He said his top 10 would be Cody at SummerSlam, Punk in Saudi, Styles in Perth, Dom on Raw, Dom on Survivor Series, Logan in Paris, Elimination Chamber, Cody at Mania, Gunther, Randy Orton at Backlash. I mean, that's crazy. Randy Orton was at least, Randy Orton at Backlash was better than Cody at Mania, was better than Elimination Chamber. Gunther was better than Cody at Mania, better than Elimination Chamber, might have been better than Logan Paul, might have been better than Randy Orton. I mean, yeah. It's all subjective. So I hear you, but yeah, I honestly don't know where you're getting this from. It wasn't the best match. I told you what my favorite match on the of the retirement tour was. It was the SummerSlam match. But guess what? It's okay that was my favorite match on the tour because that's the match where he actually passed the torch to Cody Rhodes. All right, this will be the last email. Zach writes in, first off, I acknowledge my OPTC. Well, in that case, I'll give you one of these. As I failed to do so last time, my apologies, no problem. I agree with everybody's opinion that Braun Breaker's recent promos have unequivocally leveled him up, but I'm excited to see how he reacts on the stick when he's actually face-to-face with Punk in the ring, which I think is what Punk actually meant when he said to him after WrestleMania. Thoughts? I would have to imagine that Punk that's going to happen Monday on Raw. I would have to imagine that that's this week, right? Punk was at the Cena show. I don't know if he's been announced for Raw or not, but I would hope that he's going to be at Raw if he was at the Cena show. And if he's going to be at Raw, he's going to have to respond to Braun talking about him at WrestleMania. He's going to have to respond to Braun talking about his wife. He's going to have to respond to all of it. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope that you enjoyed this show. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, youtube.com/Notsam Wrestling. Make sure you're subscribed across all audio platforms, comments, likes, reviews, ratings, the whole deal. And we'll see you very, very soon here on Notsam Wrestling.